of this Category 4 hurricane whips around and makes its way onto land. We're also going to talk with a former FEMA administrator who says the storm surge from hurricanes past, like Charlie, which we just referenced, don't even come close to this. We'll be right back.
Right now on NBC News Now.
As we come on the air, here's what we know.
It has been dramatic, powerful.
We begin with breaking news just coming in.
What's happening now, what's happening next, and what it means for you.
We're continuing to follow the Russian attack on Ukraine.
There's an intense artillery battle underway.
We're getting out of this area right now because more air raid sirens are sounding.
As we look out over the latest city-turned-crime scene, we see the things left behind.
Was there a school officer on campus? Because that's what we've been told.
No, fewer people are content to just offer their thoughts and prayers.
And the House has answered the call to create new gun laws.
The stunning testimony.
In the eye of the hurricane, there is more coming for you.
There is more coming for us, and I think we're pretty close to it because when I last talked to you, you may have noticed it wasn't raining. Well, the rain is now beginning to fall, and that means that we're pretty close to probably seeing the back eye
Carrie,
of this
who's behind
wall,
you? Just out of curiosity, like who's
through.
out and about in this storm right now? I mean, it's the eye, but what's up?
I've met these guys. I met these guys earlier. They're from Texas. They have a YouTube channel. They do extreme weather, and so they've been out and about. They're walking around. That's Matt and Michael. They're two brothers from Texarkana, I think. If you're listening to what I'm listening to, and I don't know whether it's coming through, those are the warnings we've been getting on our cell phones, which remarkably the cell phone system's still working, telling us about tornado threats. So there continues to be tornado threats. And, you know, it can be deceptive because you and I are talking, as you said, it seems relatively calm right now. It can feel like the hurricane is over. This hurricane is not over. We still have a tremendous amount more to deal with. And I think I mentioned earlier, we may actually see some storm surge here. The storm surge to the south was dramatic, and we may actually see the same thing or something similar like that here.
What is the expectation for the storm surge?
Well, the prediction started out at like 8 to 10 feet, then it went up to 12, and then went all the way up to 17. You know, it's hard to say. Where I'm standing right now, I'm just 2 blocks from Charlotte Harbor, where it meets up with the Peace River. And so if it does happen, it's coming right where we are. I mean, the water will come in. If people are wondering about, well, what will we do to, retreat? Our retreat would be to the 2nd and 3rd stories of the parking garage, where many of the folks who left their homes, like hurricane refugees, because they decided not to ride it out at the last minute, are currently in their cars right now. But, as we are in the middle of this, waiting for the backside, and then we know it's going to be nighttime, and so it'll be too dark to do any sort of assessments. And that's an indication, actually, that the wind is beginning to pick up. And I should point out the wind is now coming from a different direction. So there's hardly any wind out here, but we're going to get the wind. And it's, you got to remember that. So we've been standing here, the wind has been coming this direction, and now it's going to start coming this direction. And so everything moves, including us. So I'll take you right now. We've been using this building. Yeah, I've been using this building here to protect us. So you have, like the brick building, you've got all of this. This was protecting us from the wind that was coming at us this direction. Now when the wind comes at us this direction, we have to move to another location where we have, again, the building protecting us, and there's moments where I can step out, show you what's going on, but then get back into a safe area.
Tell me more about the people who are in this parking garage, Carrie, because I'm struck by, and I spoke with one of the Charlotte County officials just a couple of hours ago, about half of the people in this county are over the age of 65. Not particularly surprising for a popular retiree spot, right, in Florida. But when you have such a number of older folks who are in one location, that presents new challenges. I think you were saying that some of them, people of all ages, have gotten into this parking garage because they initially didn't want to leave, and then at the last minute thought, maybe I don't want to stay home, so let me bring the dog and the cat and pop in the car.
So I'll sort of paint the picture for you. James Brown right now, he goes, that's my name. I can't sing. He and his dog, Oliver, are right now in the car, in the back seat. He's trying to calm the dog down because the dog's never been through something like this. He seems to be relatively relaxed. He feels safe. His wife has joined him. So they're all there. They brought some food. They brought some water. There's another car right next to them. A young woman, she's 71 years old, but a very pleasant woman by the name of Constance is inside her vehicle with her cat, Joey, and Joey is crawling all over the car. She says that her cat has never been inside the car and so is exploring and also a little skittish with a cat storm. The other cars there, well, I met a family. They're from Indiana. They just moved here. They have never been through a hurricane. That's Cindy and Kevin Flavo, I think was I can't remember their last name. Anyway, they just moved here. This is their first hurricane. I said, "Are you scared?" And Kevin said, "I'm anxious." And I understand that anxiety because you don't know what is coming next. I mean, in the same way that we're standing here waiting for the backside of this storm to arrive and the eye wall with the strongest winds, because you don't know, that anxiety is just a very natural human reaction.
That's right. That makes total sense. Carrie Sanders, thank you. And thank you, by the way, Carrie, for pulling back the curtain and giving us more of a sense of where you are, how you and your team stay safe. I think that's really important. We really appreciate you being there. As I know, we're bracing now for the second half of this storm. We'll have more of that coverage live. Let me bring back Bill Cairns for the latest on the storm's trajectory. So we had that update at the top of the hour, Bill, on the path, right? The new warnings for places like North and South Carolina of storm surges. And I see that you also have looked at what we're seeing so far from this storm. As we have this, it's so weird, Bill. It feels like this moment of relative peace in what has been a very intense day of storm coverage. It's not going to last.
Yeah, I always call this moment kind of like the fog after the storm. It's like you get the landfall, it's not going to get any stronger. So it's just starting to get weaker from here. And we get to the point where some of our crews are down because the winds are too strong right now. So you're not giving you the pictures and the drama, the buildup. But there's still a lot of damage being done. I mean, there's still trees falling down. There's still people.
That's the key part, right?
Right. So it's still happening. It's just it's hard for us to move with the storm as we go throughout, the entire evening and even, tomorrow. We do our best to place our crews along the line of the storm. But yeah, there's always this little, I always call it it's almost like the fog of war. You don't really know what's always going on. It won't be until the next day or two. I mean, remember Katrina? We didn't even know how bad it was till 2 days later, when we had all the levees break. So as far as the winds have gone, some of our gauges did hold up pretty well and gave us some of the gusts. I mean, Port Charlotte was 105, Naples 112. So this was a very powerful storm when it made landfall with the winds. So, I mean, obviously, it made landfall as 150. That's the estimated strongest winds. But, we actually measured that were some in the 120 range. Here's some other Sanibel Island 106, Venice 82 even, Fort Myers 92. But that could have been higher than this. That stopped working. That's going to happen in these storms. So tonight, one of the biggest fears that we have now that the storm surge is pretty much peaked and will start to slowly recede from here, is what happens with the freshwater flooding. We've been in this rare high risk of flash flooding from areas from Jacksonville to Daytona Beach, includes all the Orlando area. And that's where the heaviest rain is going to fall tonight. If we get any of those totals that could be up there to 2 feet, that's where they would occur. It's that I-4 corridor northwards up I-95 to Daytona Beach in the Flagler County here, including all of Volusia County. So that's kind of rainfall totals. Florida has sandy soil. It can soak it up, but 2 feet of rain is going to saturate eventually, and there's going to be water places that don't typically see it. So we'll have to watch out for flash flood warnings as we go throughout the night. And here's a closer up view of the storm. We still do have a tornado watch that includes areas from just north of West Palm Beach all the way up towards the Space Coast. I haven't heard of any confirmed tornadoes today. Yesterday we had about 6, so that's good that we didn't have any. We don't really have a lot of spiraling bands away from the center of the storm, so that's been a little bit helpful. And you can see here, there's the outline of our tornado watch. As far as the center of the storm, it's now exiting Port Charlotte and Punta Gorda, and now it's starting to head towards Central Florida. If you want to go to one location that's had a really rough go with this, from Captiva down to Sanibel Island, still that outer eye wall is still just raking right into the area. So, you know, Hallie, it's just sad and it's heartbreaking. There's so many people out there that evacuated and left that are watching us from somewhere else, and all they want to know is, how's my house?
It's exactly right.
They
That's
want to know
exactly right.
what's left of my house. Does anyone have any information whatsoever? And that's, you know, we'll get that in the next day or two, but you feel for those people.
I was just talking to one of the mayors down there, Cape Coral, Fort Myers Beach, spoke with both of them today, and they're talking about the same thing, Bill, because they had evacuated, obviously, further inland here. One of them had been in touch with
keep these people in your prayers, because there's a lot of people that's getting affected, even YouTubers. They're losing their roofs and everything else in Florida, guys. And there's some helpful information if you're going to help on my community page that can lead you to the maybe some information. Don't let people that has no reason for doing it turn it into a cash cow. Actually go to the people that's actually going to help.
with folks who did not evacuate, who were still on the island, texting him pictures, you know, of just totally underwater, totally smoked. And that is more of what we're going to see, because as you point out, it is tough to get crews and equipment into some of these places that are the hardest hit.
I mean, all indications are in the Fort Myers area that the water may have made it all the way to Interstate 75, which is about 8 to 9 miles from the ocean. So if you go and, you know, call it up on Google Maps or wherever, look at your phone and see how far away Interstate 75 is from the ocean, and then how many houses and, you know, villages and communities are in between that. And possibly, if not likely, all of those places have had water damage. And that's going to be one of the big stories. You know, that water is going to recede. So when these people return, they're going to come home to a house and they'll see a line on their wall where the water got up to. And then they got to be like, what do we do? How do we fix this? We got to tear the floors up. We got to pull the carpets. We got to get new sheetrock put in, because you can't be in Florida with, you know, water damage in your walls, because the mold is going to grow like crazy.
That's right.
So yeah, that's not just like one community. I mean, we're talking the possibility of hundreds of thousands of people dealing with that same issue.
Bill Cairns, thank you for being on top of that track for us. Appreciate it. Yeah. I want to bring in now Craig Fugate, the former head of FEMA under former President Obama, who is in Gainesville for us. Thank you so much for being with us. You know, you are somebody who we wanted to have you on because you know hurricanes. Irene, Sandy happened on your watch when you were at FEMA, but you've talked about other storms like Charlie, which you think don't even come close to Ian. Explain that. Why?
Well, I was state director during Charlie for Governor Bush, and you could take Charlie and the hurricane force winds it had and basically put it inside the eye wall of Ian. It was like a 10-mile wide tornado. And because it was so compact, it didn't produce the storm surge that we're seeing with Ian. And the other thing was Charlie was fast moving, so we didn't get heavy rain in the interior state. We got wind damage, but it was very concentrated. Ian's going to do everything you don't want from a hurricane. We've already seen the impacts of storm surge. We got a very large wind field. This is going to cause trees to come down, power outage, damage to homes. And because it's not moving as fast, the risk, as you heard earlier, of extreme rainfall events of 1 foot to 2 feet. In Central Florida is actually had above average rainfall this summer. So it's pretty saturated. There's not going to be a lot of places for this water to go, except it's going to go up and get into people's homes.
So is that your biggest concern right now? Is it the flooding potential of places further inland?
Well, the biggest concern is the storm surge and how quickly the rescue teams can get into those areas.
Yeah.
Because we still got to make sure that people did stay behind. They're going to have to get in there. But this is, think of this as, 3D chess. You've got to respond to what's already been hit. You still got areas that haven't even gotten the experience of the storm yet that are going to get hit. And you're going to have to respond now from an area down in Southwest Florida all the way up to the East Coast, and now potentially looking at impacts as far north as Jacksonville and then up into the, Georgia and the Carolinas. So for, the state of Florida, this is pretty much all of the state peninsula is at some risk of impacts. And those impacts in some areas haven't been felt yet. They'll be occurring tonight and into tomorrow.
Because we just talked with Bill Cairns, our meteorologist here, who talked about the track of this storm, right? Because it is not going to just evaporate once Ian gets further into the Central Coast, right? You got North Carolina, South Carolina now on alert with these watches and warnings in place over the next, let's say, 48 hours or so. There is such a thing, and I know you know this well, of like response fatigue in some ways. How do you think about that when there's storms on storms, right? Disaster on the coast of Florida, devastation in the middle of Florida, in the central part of it, more destruction headed toward the coast of the Carolinas?
Well, it's like, FEMA, they were in Puerto Rico, they were in Alaska, they got, 2 storms there. Now they got Florida, they potentially got some more states. And it's really got to prioritize. There'll be a lot of things that need to get done, but because you got so many areas of impact, you got to focus on the most critical thing, and that's life-saving. So FEMA's already moved additional urban search and rescue teams to support Governor DeSantis and the State Emergency Operations Center, and they're focusing on these things. They're going to focus on life-saving. They're going to focus on the immediate needs supporting the state as they set the stage for recovery, and that's not going to be the same throughout the state. There are going to be some parts of Florida that will move faster into recovery because they didn't have the heavy impacts, while they're still doing a lot of work just to get power on, particularly closer down in the Southwest area.
So for folks who might be listening or watching and wondering, okay, so when does the power get back on, right? How long does it take with a monster storm like this? And I think to put it into context is important here. The 5th most powerful storm based on wind speed to ever hit the United States. The most recent one we had that was stronger wind speed at landfall, 155 miles an hour or higher, was Michael back a few years ago here. How long is it going to take after a storm like this, for these responders to get in, for those utility trucks? We've seen these convoys of trucks heading down the highway, right, heading south towards Florida to help. What's the turnaround time on something like that?
Well, it's going to depend. I mean, if the distribution system is up and running, it will go faster. I would tell people, you need to be planning for power outages for days to weeks. More rural areas may be harder to get to, areas with heavy damage. Even when the power comes on, people will have damage to their homes. They may not be able to have the power hooked up until they can make repairs. So this will be what we would call a long duration power outage. Some areas will come up quicker, some areas will take longer, but we're not going to know until the storm gets through how much damage there was to the grid and what's going to have to take place to start getting power back into these hard hit areas.
Climate change is such a huge part of this, too. We're seeing storms get stronger and more powerful. We saw the rapid intensification specifically of this storm. That's not going away either.
Yeah, I mean, warmer water. I mean, this is the thing that we have seen is that these storms feed on the energy of the warmer water. So when you got warmer waters, and again, some of the record-setting events we're seeing, people will say, well, this is an individual event, but think of how many record-setting events we're having back to back. So we're seeing this, particularly with heavy rainfall. We're seeing the amplification of intensification. And these things are being measured. They're being reported. These are peer-reviewed panels. So it is causing that, it's probably hard to say it's causing the hurricane, but we are seeing things like rapid intensification and more extreme rainfall events more.
And there goes Craig in Gainesville for us. Craig Fugate, the FEMA head. We thank him for joining us. Apologies for the abrupt ending. But listen, that is what's happening when you've got this storm passing through. Power outages happening everywhere, et cetera. Comms are tricky. Comms are real tricky in Sarasota, where the city's mayor says they're getting ready for what's to come. The mayor is joining us now on the phone because I understand that you have also lost power. Your shot has also dropped out. That's why you're calling in. We're looking at a map of sort of where you are. Tell me what you're seeing outside.
I'm seeing a lot of wind. It's picking up. It was before it was in the 70s, 70 miles an hour. Now it's probably more. It's intensifying. People keep texting me that they're losing power one by one. As of a few hours ago, as of 2 o'clock, actually 1:30, there were 22,000 people without power. I suspect that number is significantly higher, in the hundreds of thousands at this point. And I know that FPL, Florida Power and Light, is actively working on getting those back up and running. So the number varies almost by the minute.
And no idea of when the power is going to get back on, Mayor Arroyo. Tell me about the shelter and the capacities that you have at shelters, because I know you have 12 of them, about a dozen in the county. Are you satisfied with the number of people that have evacuated? Do you think people heeded the warning to get out?
A lot of them did. We have 3,800 individuals approximately in the shelters currently. And but some people chose to just stay back, and that's a personal choice. They understand that there's a drastic, there's a very high chance of danger and of storm surges and flooding, and they just chose to assume that risk.
We're looking at a few things. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just clarify, because people are obviously looking at you because you had to call in, because, again, the power is out where you are. We were showing a couple of images. On the bottom right of your screen is a live shot now, again, from the Tampa Bay area. The radar, the live track, the live storm track, as we are watching every minute of this storm, is just above that. And then we're seeing some images, too, of what appear to be crews having been trying to work before the storm hit. Some of the Emergency Operations Center. We've been showing you a NASA satellite, too, just to show the scale and the scope of this storm. Mayor Arroyo, you were talking about sort of the response time, the need now for people to play it safe, essentially, hunker down where you are. You need to stay hunkered. At what point do you anticipate some of those responders being able to get out to folks who might need it?
When the conditions become normal or within a normal range, and let's say wind speeds of under 40 miles an hour, they would send them back out. But honestly, our main priority is the safety of our residents. And we sort of trained for this as a coastal town. So we've been preparing for years. We've elevated some roads. And even this, we called a state of emergency prior to it becoming a hurricane, when it was still a tropical storm. So we activated our emergency operations center. We were repeatedly telling people to evacuate Zone A, which is the barrier islands and those living on the coast, and those living in boats and trailers and RVs. While closely monitoring the situation, I received a full briefing from our staff. Our utilities department checked that the generators were ready and up and running. Public Works began clearing out storm drains last week. We fortified buildings. We cleaned out the Parks and Recreation Department, cleaned out the parks for projectiles. Fuel farms were operational, ready to go. FPL was ready to go. Florida Power and Light was ready to go. Our police was ready to go. So we're as prepared as we can be for something of this magnitude.
Yeah. Living along the coast, you kind of have to be, although this magnitude, as you well know, is incredibly intense. Mayor Eric Arroyo, thank you so much from Sarasota. A lot of people thinking about you, hoping that you stay safe and that your community recovers quickly from this. You are looking live now at our Jesse Kirsch, who is live in the Orlando area. And Jesse, we have just heard now from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who says his meteorologists, right, this is from the governor, think the storm surge has peaked so far at 12 feet. 911 calls are being rerouted in some counties. This is news that we are just now getting into us in the last not even 90 seconds or so. there are some people who are stuck in these zones where responders cannot get to them, who are calling 911, and those calls are getting rerouted. The concern now, major flooding north of where you are, Jesse. Obviously, you are starting to get those first bands of rain. Even more further north where Jacksonville, for example, set to get it. Talk me through what you're seeing.
Yeah, so Hallie, the weather has been deteriorating throughout the afternoon here. And what I want to stress to people is what you're seeing right now are Ian's northern bands. The heart of the storm is not expected here for hours. It made landfall more than 100 miles from where I am right now. But to give you an idea of how strong this storm is, we are already seeing strong winds and rain pummeling this area as we continue to get these strong gusts. It has really picked up in the last 5 minutes or so. Officials here are concerned about potentially 90-mile-per-hour winds and up to 2 feet of rain in some parts, which could lead to flash flooding. As of this afternoon, officials have asked people to no longer be on the road. So at this point, people should be where they're going to ride out the storm in this part of the state. And even beyond Ian's direct path, we've already seen nearly a dozen potential tornadoes touch down. We've seen small airplanes tossed around. And again, all the way here, more than 100 miles away, where we expect the storm's worst in the overnight to early morning hours, the worst is still yet to come. And it's not necessarily going to be about the wind. It's going to be about the potential threat of flooding. Again, we are looking at possibly 2 feet of rain in some parts of this area. And obviously, you and I in recent days have been talking about the drastic impacts flooding can have on communities in this country.
How about tornado watches, Jesse? That's a concern, too, in the Orlando area.
Yeah, that's something that is on residents' mind. We have been getting alerts on our phone just about the general threat of all kinds of severe weather that has already been making its way through here over the last day or so throughout Florida. And I flew in yesterday into Miami, so on the eastern coast of the state. And even over there, it was clear that something bad was brewing in Florida. So just gives you an idea of how powerful Ian is, even as it was making its way toward shore before landfall. You talk about those tornado threats. I spoke with a man who brought his baby boy, his young daughter, his wife, and they were meeting other family members at a shelter here in the Orlando area. And he told me one of the things on his mind that made them make the decision to come to the shelter was the threat of tornadoes in the area. So that is just one of the things that is at risk right now in this part of Florida. And again, we are still hours away, Hallie. I cannot stress that enough. We are seeing right now, this is just a preamble to what we are expecting here.
Have you seen many? I know your backdrop there looks to be like a pond. I don't know if you're on a golf course or near or whatever, Jess, but have you seen many cars or people out in this? My hope is the answer is no, but like, are people taking it seriously considering that they are not on the coast, they're far further inland?
Yeah, and I think you just heard, if I heard correctly, a car just went by me. We have seen a couple cars driving by, but largely the roads have been ghost towns. There was one man I interviewed outside of a shelter who was going away, who's going to come back in a couple of hours, which again, officials have been stressing against. Even though we don't expect Ian here in the Orlando area until tomorrow morning, officials are asking people at this point to stay in place. And just to give you some context on how powerful these little pops of wind can already be, as you can see, we're getting hit by another gust right now. Hallie, we've been riding around in a Chevy Suburban, one of those giant SUVs, okay? And we've got a lot of gear in that car. This wind has been strong enough that when I've been sitting in that car a couple different times, that Suburban has been wobbling. So that is how strong this wind already is. You can see the trees blowing right where we are. We're not on the golf course. Hopefully no one's playing out on a golf course right now. You're not going to be hitting them straight, I'll tell you that much, if you're trying to sneak 9 or 18 holes in right now. But again, I mean, jokes aside, officials are telling people to get somewhere safe right now because we're still hours away and it's light out. The other concern about early morning, overnight hours, obviously, is that when it's dark, you can't see what's coming your way. And if you're on the roads in rain on a good day, that's not something you want to be doing, and certainly not when you've got the remnants, potentially still a hurricane, but certainly at least the remnants of it coming your way here in the Orlando area. And someone from our climate team, one of our amazing members of our climate team, Catherine, who I've been speaking with throughout the day, told me that Ian really sticks out because it is going to continue to pummel Florida straight across from west to east. And it's obviously making its way up the East Coast beyond Florida, too.
I only asked about the golf course thing, Jesse, because I can see this fountain basically blowing sideways behind you at this point. And what I think is so important, and I want to share with folks, again, the Florida governor briefing now Power outages up to 1.1 million. We expect that number to grow. That is a number that we reported even 30 minutes ago. You have to think, given what we're seeing where you are, that's going to continue to intensify. They've got 100 portable cell towers ready to deploy. The key point is once it is safe to do so. And Jesse, you make an important point that this thing, as we look at the track in the upper left hand of the screen, however you're watching on your stream, it is cutting, it is slicing through Florida, and then it's heading up towards the Carolinas coast.
Yeah, and you talk about those outages and
windows, get low, and put something over the top of your head to protect yourself. If a tornado warning, self-deployments. We do not want individuals self-deploying out on their own. That is very, very dangerous. Leave that to the professionals that are trained in how to do that. Do not take your personal boat out in these situations. We do not want to have to respond to yet another problem. The governor mentioned there are more deaths as a result of indirect situations than the actual direct situation of storm surge wind at the beginning of a storm. So please, what we want you to do more than anything else is stay safe. Please be careful out there. Again, Governor, thank you.
Cajun Navy, they're on the way, right?
There are reports that they are on the way.
So so I think the Cajun Navy is on the way, and okay, there we go. I mean, look, we really welcome. I mean, those are some really battle-hardened folks, and so Florida welcomes their support, and honestly, particularly Louisiana, because they've dealt with so much, and so the government. Governor's been great. And look, we've got a long way to go before this storm exits the state, and there's going to be a lot of need to get into these communities, particularly in Southwest Florida, and offer the immediate assistance. But I do think the three-pronged strategy, we're going in by ground, air, and by sea, means that all hands are on deck. And there's going to be people that are going to be in harm's way. And what I've said is, the folks were told in these areas of the hazards. They were given time to be able to make arrangements and to leave. Some chose not to do that. They would have probably been better off doing that. Nevertheless,
home. We are taking on some water, but not too much at the moment.
Outside.
Hello,
India,
everybody.
where you are, what are you
Thanks
seeing?
for everybody commenting
Oh my
and
God,
watching.
you wouldn't believe the damage. We saw our car float away back when the winds picked up, and there are so many cars that are just floating around in our parking lot, and a couple of the parking garages have collapsed. We've seen furniture and mattresses from the hotel nearby, just over, and floating down with the sheets and everything still on them. And refrigerators, we've seen, believe it or not, refrigerators are floating.
I believe it. You know, you said parking garages have collapsed. Do you mean entirely, like the structures have come down?
No, they are actually, big structures that have a roof over them and several parking spots, but they have come down. Two of them are completely down. One is on its way. And like I said, many cars are floating around here.
Have you called or tried to get help at all, Cheryl, or are you just in it now for the long haul until the storm passes?
We just have to be in it now for the long haul. The main road down the island is flooded, and the bridges that open are closed. And so we were just instructed to stay here and be safe, and they'll let us know when it's safe to venture outside.
Instructed by city officials?
Yes. The sheriff, Lee County Sheriff's Department, they're the ones with the diving.
I imagine that if you could go back in time, Cheryl, safe to say that you might have made a different call a little earlier?
Oh, absolutely. We were vacationing and we were really unaware that there was a storm building and headed our way until everybody kind of talked about it on the beach and at the pool on Monday. And so then after that, we were like, well, we should pay attention to what's going on. Yes, and the airlines, we tried to see if we could get out of Tampa or Orlando, and the flights were all booked. We were willing to drive even to Miami if we could get a flight out, but there was nothing available at that point.
Yeah. And you have food and phone chargers and all that for the next, 24 hours or so?
We do. We actually went to the store last night and decided that we probably should get some things, and that was a good decision. Okay. We have no electricity to do it, but we're okay. We're hanging in there.
Okay. Cheryl Berberich, stranded there in Fort Myers. Cheryl, obviously, please stay safe. We're thinking about you. Thank you for joining us to share a bit of your experience there, right where Ian, this Category 4 storm, has made a direct hit. Cheryl Berberich, thank you. And thanks to all of you for watching. Obviously, a busy hour of developing news, breaking news. We'll have more coming up. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, for even more. Have a good night.
How wide the wind field is as far as the winds go. And, they've seen wind gusts now to hurricane force in Volusia County at New Smyrna Beach. These are sustained winds, gusts over 100 miles an hour, where this is making landfall in Charlotte and also southern Sarasota counties. By 2 in the morning, it's going to make it over southern Polk County near the Fort Meade area south of Lakeland, and we could see wind gusts there well over 110 miles an hour. From there, it'll work northeastward, and by 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, be sitting somewhere over northeastern Seminole County. Now, that's important because this is a pretty long time from 2 a.m. to 2.
We want to go back to MSNBC's Ali Velshi in Naples, Florida, where the water is really getting hot. Ali, what's going on there?
Andrea, I got another mic, as you can see. I'm going to ask Randy to take a look. This is where we were. We were showing you the ocean. We were showing you the Gulf, really, the Gulf of Mexico, and the storm surge coming in. It continues to come in. Now, if Randy just tilts down a little bit, you can see this is our parking lot. This is the parking lot of where we're staying. Look at the water coming in over here. Now, look down there. You can see cars completely submerged. You can see debris flying around. Look over to the left there. There are three cars. There's a dark gray car closest to us, then a silver car, and a white car behind it. None of those cars are where they were actually parked. In fact, you can see that silver car in the middle has been completely pushed. That's the situation with all the vehicles. I haven't even gone around to the other side of the building where my vehicle is parked, but I suspect it's the same situation. Look at these properties across here. These are homes and apartments that have car parking underneath. The car parking is now almost completely submerged. There's debris all over the place. It's entirely flooded. And we are probably high tide here is going to be about 8 or 8:30 p.m. So we are hours away from high tide. We're also a few hours away from the worst of the storm being in. We're several miles south of where the cone for this storm is and where landing is going to be, but it's a very, very big storm. So over the course of the next few hours, we're not even at 1 o'clock, probably 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are going to be worse than this. You're going to continue to see this forceful flooding come in. There's no beach left in Naples. There's no beach anywhere from Naples all the way up to Sarasota at this point. Everything is entirely submerged, but it's not the beach that's the problem. It's all this. For as far as the eye can see, here in Naples, there's water inward everywhere. Cars are going to start floating around. That means roads are going to be blocked. It means trees are coming down. We're seeing a lot of these very, very solid palm trees that are used to this kind of weather, or at least similar winds. Look at the way they're blowing. Trees come down. That means electricity comes down. We've already lost power here. You've spoken to some people who have power, but a lot of these communities were well over. I think we're into close to 200,000 people in southern Florida without power. So, and the final thing, Andrea, is for rescues or for power, we're not anywhere close to the height of where the winds are going to be. These trucks, the trucks that the cherry pickers, the trucks that go out to either fix power lines, repair trees, or EMS going out there to help people, they can't do that above 50 miles an hour. So we have to wait for all this to pass. At this point, in fact, I just got one on my phone, a shelter-in-place alert. There's no more doing anything about this. If you are out here now, do not attempt to move. You cannot attempt to move your car. If you see that's your car and you decide you want to move it, that is no longer an option right now. So everybody who is where they are needs a shelter in place. There are still tornado warnings happening across Florida.
You're welcome, Roger. And I put a lot of information for these counties on my page.
And it's going to be a few more hours before the worst of this is over. In fact, we're not even close to the worst of it yet.
And Allie, just in the time you've been talking, if Randy can pan back to the left there to that car, that white car is now almost completely submerged. You can, I mean, just the water level rising on those three cars that you were showing earlier. I guess it's my
and with
left
every
or
one of
right.
these gusts and surges, you see that they move further. The water sort of takes it out. That middle car, that silver car there, the white car's almost submerged. The silver car keeps knocking around, and eventually it's going to get. And this is what happens. These cars get into the middle of streets. Then that makes rescues difficult. This is the flood part of these hurricanes that doesn't always register to people because we think of them as big windstorms, and this certainly is a big windstorm. But this is going to be a big flood storm.
And the warning from Samara Theodore at the weather station is, you know, this is going to sit for a while. This is slowing down from 9 miles an hour to maybe 3 to 4 miles an hour as it goes over land. So it's going to be over Florida for quite a while and then going to, you know, hit as it moves north and then curves around towards Savannah, Georgia.
That's right. And so Orlando's got to watch out, and Jacksonville's got to watch out. Remember, in Florida, places flood very, very easily. It doesn't happen all that often, but it happens. So everybody needs to be looking at this storm that could move as fast as a human can walk and just sits there and softens up the soil, takes out trees, causes a lot of damage. Everybody's got to take this very seriously.
Allie, stay with us because joining us now is Michael Brennan, Acting Deputy Director at NOAA's National Hurricane Center in Miami. What's the latest trajectory that you're seing there?
I'm not really for sure, Roger, but I'd say it'll affect the water somehow, but I don't know.
This is, survival mode for people in these locations if anybody's left. Hopefully, folks, this is going to be where there's more storm surge than where you just saw in Naples. We're looking at 12 to 18 feet of water above ground level in places like Fort Myers, Charlotte Harbor. This is going to be an unsurvivable situation for the next few hours here, both from a surge perspective and from a wind perspective with those 155-mile-per-hour winds in the eye wall moving on shore now. So hopefully people have evacuated from these areas right along the coast into safer locations inland.
Michael, what is the duration of this storm? Because we've been hearing how slow it's going to move once it hits land, once more of it hits land.
Right, yeah. As the center moves inland, it's going to... Yeah, as the center moves inland, right now it's moving about 9 miles per hour. We're going to see a slowing of that forward speed, and it's going to take the center of Ian across the Florida Peninsula. And by the time we get to tomorrow evening, it's just going to be right along the coast somewhere between St. Augustine and Cape Canaveral. And then it's going to turn back northward and then approach the southeast coast, Georgia and South Carolina, as we go through Friday into Friday evening. So we're going to have a long duration event here. There's going to be extremely heavy rainfall to the north of the track of Ian across central and north Florida. We have hurricane warnings in effect on the Florida East Coast, storm surge warnings as well, and the potential for high winds and a lot of storm surge here from, say, places like Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston. That's going to be a multi-day event extending into the portions of the weekend.
And how far north is this storm going to have, further offshoots as it moves north? What are you projecting now?
As it moves north, it's going to eventually move inland and decay over the southeastern United States as we get into the weekend. But by that time, there's going to have been a tremendous amount of rain. If you look at the rainfall forecast, we're talking about 10 to 15 inches of rain across portions of central and north Florida, isolated amounts as high as 24 inches during the next couple of days, and then very heavy rainfall extending all the way up into South Carolina, North Carolina is going to be an impactful storm for many, many people.
Well, thank you for the latest from NOAA. We really do appreciate it, all the work that you and the great people at NOAA are doing. Thank you, Michael. And MSNBC's Ali Velshi is in Naples, Florida, as we've been showing. And Ali, that street there in Naples as the water surges, and as you pointed out, high tide isn't even until later tonight.
Yeah, and 8 o'clock. So what we think we're going to get here is 6 feet, 4 to 6 feet. Obviously, when you're standing up next to a car and you're 6 feet tall, which the car, so we're not even half the so when you 12 to 18 feet of surge, maybe 3.5 feet or something like that. Many story of a building where Randy and I are right now shooting this, you're in danger. You're in danger on the second floor of a building. On the first floor of a building, you're completely in danger. So people have to think about this. Now, obviously, on Sanibel Island and places like that, they know that they're heavily exposed. These are evacuation zones. Most people, if they're there, know that they're prepared for it. But the storm, the surge and the flood, as I said, Andrea, when you and I talked close to the top of the hour, I was on that beach. Randy, let's take a look at the beach. I was out there, and I was ready to do the report for your show. And Andrea, you know I've done many hurricanes, and we know how to stay safe. Within seconds, that became impenetrable. It became difficult to watch. I want to ask Randy to come back now and take a look at the cars over there. Randy, take a look at what's happening now. The cars are now all moving into each other because they've gotten to a point where they've been lifted off. And again, Andrea, for people who are trying to get out, this is why we've had an alert go off on our phone to say shelter in place. You cannot get into your car even with a foot of water. Our meteorologists tell us all the time, you can't get in with 12 inches of water. We're now at 3 feet of water. Look what's happening. Cars are just floating around on their own. So this gets worse here in Naples over the next few hours, but up in Sanibel, up in Fort Myers, up in those areas where the storm's actually going to hit and hit hard, this becomes much more serious for the course of the next several hours.
Ali Velshi, your experience and your flexibility and your ability to move around is just such an asset. Thank you so much for all you're doing here, down there for all of us.
At Therabody, we believe that everybody deserves a chance to keep going, keep dancing, keep celebrating, and
graphic. Kim, the past 5 years, half a decade, have been frankly pretty horrendous in terms of major hurricanes, category 4, category 5, making landfall. Of course, we can't forget one of the most costliest hurricane seasons on record. 2017, we had Hurricane Harvey stall over Texas. Hurricane Irma weakened on approach to Florida, so it wasn't a category 4 along the western side of Florida there, but it was in the Keys when it made landfall in the Keys. Of course, our current situation with Hurricane Ian there, a strong category 4, borderline category 5. But yeah, the northern Gulf Coast just spattered with strong storms. Laura back in 2020. We have Ida just 1 year ago making landfall in Louisiana as a category 4. And Jacqueline was in the middle of Hurricane Michael in 2018. That storm produced colossal storm surge as well, correct, Jack?
Not quite as much as this, I don't think, Ty, but it did have a storm surge attached to that. Of course, that devastated the Mexico Beach area. And we were riding that storm out west of Mexico Beach. We were in Panama City, and the reason we were riding it out in Panama City as opposed to the right side of the eye wall, which is where that storm surge happened in Mexico City, was because we couldn't find anywhere safe to ride it out in Mexico City. And that was a good call that we were on.
An incredible amount of rain, similar to what we saw with Hurricane Harvey over Houston, that flooded nearly the entire city. Allie?
Morgan, we talk about the power outages here. We've learned that there are just over 1 million people who do not have power in the state. We know that there are a lot of people who live in Tampa, 380,000 of them, as you point out, not directly on the coast. You know, they can't get anywhere. Airports are shut down. Bridges are shut down. We showed that live shot of, I think, that Tampa Bay bridge, the Sky Bridge, which is closed. Marco Island, roads and bridges are impassable further south of where you are, as we look at some time lapses here. Near where Marco Island, the eye made landfall here. If you are still there, if you are on some of these barrier islands, and I talked to one mayor who said people still are, there is no way to get off. You're done, right, until this storm actually passes by.
Yeah, unfortunately, those folks in those outlying areas are going to be facing a tough 48, 72 hours ahead until emergency officials can get back there and start the long process of cleaning up, of recovering from Hurricane Ian. And if you look down the entire coast of Florida, there are countless communities that are like that. And that was a serious concern when you saw just the sheer size of Ian as it churned its way through the Gulf and made its way towards Florida.
Florida. Right now, we're still getting preliminary reports about some of those outlying areas, the extent of the damage there. We do know from the stunning images we've seen along the coast in Naples, Florida, with streets already underwater, you can only imagine the extent of the damage in those outlying areas. But I think right now it's very much a dynamic situation. Even though Ian has made landfall and we've seen the destruction that it's unleashed upon those coastal communities, we're really watching its toll play out in real time as it marches across Florida. Already 1 million Floridians without power, as you mentioned. That number likely to go even higher. And I really do feel like the flooding is going to be such an issue going forward with the forecast calling for so much rain and the fact that this could really become a slow-moving storm here in the state of Florida. Hallie?
Morgan Chesky, live for us there in Tampa. Thank you. Let me bring in now Florida State Senator Jana Cruz, who represents District 18, the Tampa area there. Thank you so much for being with us. I see you on your balcony. Tell me what you're seeing, what you're hearing from folks in your neighborhood.
This is just the beginning. You know, we're 102 miles away from where this hurricane made landfall, and this is nothing. This is just wind, and you can see the resiliency of a palm tree, but you know, we're expecting as much as 24 inches of rain in the next 24 hours. This is just the beginning. We have wind gusts that are blowing everything around. And when the rain starts, it's going to get very serious. And we are going to experience flooding like we have never seen before here in Tampa. And I'm a Tampa native. Family been here for 4 generations, and you know the oceans are different now, and the storms are much more violent than I've seen in a long time. So I tell people, shelter in place. It's too late now to relocate. Stay in place and stay safe. But this is really something out here.
At what point do you anticipate going into recovery mode, if you will? The storm is still very active. As you note, it is passing by you in Tampa to the south, as we're looking at the track on the other side of the screen here, coming up through the central part of the state. What is the plan for, let's say, first thing tomorrow morning?
First thing tomorrow morning, the first thing I tell people is don't drive through moving or standing water. Water, like 2 feet of water can disable a vehicle around here. So I beg people not to decide that they need to be out and about to go through the damage. They need to stay home and not drive a car through this flood. And if you have a big truck and you think that you can drive through the flood, please don't do that, because when you do that, you move water into people's yards and possibly into their homes. So let's just stay put. Hopefully you're prepared and we can wait for the water to recede.
Jana Cruz, state senator from the Tampa area. Thank you so much for being with us. A lot of folks thinking about you and your community, and of course the rest of the Gulf Coast there in Florida. Ali Velshi is there on the Gulf Coast, specifically in Naples. And Ali, you have been in it for the last, I think, 2 hours, two and a half hours or so.
Yeah.
Roads still flooded, I assume. Tell me what you're seeing, because you have a very dramatic shot where you are.
Yeah. Well, here's the other dramatic part, how much it's changed. Take a look at this. You can see the ground. By the way, this is a tarmac ground, but now it's all sand, because that's all the water.
Well, wait a second. Let me make sure that I understand what I'm seeing.
Black.
This is sand and road, basically. Can I just tell people who might not?
Yes.
I don't know if we have the shot. If we have, I'm going to ask our team if we have the video from Ali Velshi not even an hour ago. You couldn't see the color of these cars.
It was under several feet
I
of
wouldn't
water.
be able to tell that was a white car. Yeah, they were underwater.
Yeah, right.
Look at that. That's what it looked like. We're showing people what it looked like 1 hour ago, right? And so is this because of the power of the hurricane basically sucking the water back out?
It is two things. Part of it is that, and part of it is that at 3:20 p.m. Eastern is when we hit high tide here. So the tide itself is receding under normal circumstances. Like that would normally be happening anyway. So you're seeing two things happen here. However, you did see all the impact of all of those cars that had been moved. They were all nicely aligned in a row, and they were parked, and they've all floated off. you can see the ground. I want to ask Randy to bring us over here and take a look at the ocean, which is much, much calmer. It's still a rough ocean. It's the Gulf of Mexico, but it's much calmer, and the direction of the water has changed. The direction earlier was coming toward us from the back of your screen toward you. Now it's going from the left, from the right to the left. So the storm direction has changed, which always happens on the back of a storm. And if you look down here, Randy, this Hallie was where the water was coming in from the right to the left, the storm surge. You hardly see that now. You see a little bit of it. The water has now gone back
I saw a
into the
fridge
Gulf of
floating
Mexico.
under you
Now again,
an hour ago.
There was a fridge, right. So things have changed fairly dramatically here, but this is a moving storm. So there are parts of Florida where things are really bad. And with each passing hour, we're finding out about more power outages, far more than 1 million people now. I haven't seen the last update, but I'm assuming it just keeps going up with each one. We had a report from a town where the wastewater reservoir is about to be overtopped, and that's a big problem when wastewater starts getting into public drainage water. So there's a lot that's wrong here, a lot that needs to be fixed. And the problem with this, Hallie, is people who sort of say, all right, I've dodged a bullet, the worst is over, let me go out. There's nothing but debris. See, as the water recedes, there's all sorts of debris. There's tables, there's gates,
on the roadways at this time, moving about the community. We know that we are dealing with a Category 4 hurricane with sustained winds now 140 plus miles an hour. That is what the National Weather Service is reporting to us. We also know that Hurricane Ian is 120 miles the southwest of Orlando and moving northeast at approximately 10 miles per hour. So it's moving relatively slow. But later tonight, we are anticipating the most damaging and significant winds and flooding here within Orange County. The strongest threat from Hurricane Ian is projected to come through Orange County late tonight into early morning hours. Winds are expected between 55 to 70 miles per hour and gusts up to 100 miles an hour. I can tell you not long ago when we were out and about doing some windshield type of analysis here within our community, we could already see some debris that has already blown out of the trees, et cetera. And we have not come close to seeing the worst of the wind speeds within our county. We're also anticipating up to 2 feet of rain. There's no question we're going to have some flooding here within our area. We just ask that our residents be patient. If you dial 911, we will come. Orange County also remains under a tornado watch until approximately 1 a.m. Tomorrow morning. Just over 1,100 people are in Orange County's 7 general population shelters at this time. I do remind you that we have 3 shelters which have been dedicated for special needs individuals within our community. Also, the shelters that are currently open: Apopka High School, Timber Creek High School, Ocoee High School, Dr. Phillips High School, and Memorial Middle School. As of 5 p.m., 2 more shelters were open. They are Timber Springs Middle School and Southwest Middle School. So far, within our special needs shelters, we have approximately 71 people who are there. We reported to you earlier that we thought that it was important that we go into our low-lying areas and our mobile home parks to remind people who may still be in those parks that it is recommended that they evacuate. I will tell you that our first responders were in those areas, and a few people did take advantage of that. We relocated them to various shelters, but the majority of the individuals had relocated themselves. They had gone to stay with families, or they had gone into the hotels or other places within our community. Yesterday and again today, our fire rescue department went out and visited all 79 of the mobile home parks to urge residents to move to hardened structures. Links provided a bus service to assist with this mission. We have reports of a few power outages throughout the county. The Maitland Winter Park area has reported sporadic outages, and I believe we have one other area in the city of Orlando around the Lou Gardens area that is reporting some power outages at this time. We have been working with our various utility companies to make certain that we are taking care of the needs of the residents who are without power. I will remind everyone that during periods of widespread and extended power outages, residents are asked to reduce their water usage where possible. When power is restored, it is important to limit large immediate water usage in dishwashers, washing machines, and even within your bathtubs, as well as any large quantities of water which we are flushing down the drains. And this is immediately after a power outage. I only say that to you because we are experiencing some sporadic power outages at this time. The Orlando Utilities Commission asked that we read a statement on their behalf, and I am going to do so at this time. OUC is prepared for the storm's potential impacts to our service area and is ready to respond. Electric and water crews are in place and ready to restore services as needed, and while it is safe to do so. They're grateful for the many in-state and out-of-state crews who are providing support, including the more than 100 who are already here, along with OUC's own line and water technicians, and many others who will join OUC after the storm. Customers are encouraged to visit the OUC site at ouc.com/storm center if you need additional information. They also ask that customers sign up for outage alerts. Those alerts are offered in English and Spanish by texting REG to 69682. That's REG to 69682, and that's my OUC. And with that, I wanted to just share with you, we do have several of our department directors here. Dr. Raul Pino has been working in concert with our team around the shelters, and we have Ms. Diana Almodovar, who is here, who has been working with our Public Works Department. if there are any questions from you regarding either of those areas, we would ask them to come up. To the Spanish-speaking media, we do have the ability to interpret any questions that you may have in Spanish. Ms. Martha Lee Irizarry will assist me with that process. We also have our Director of Public Safety, Danny Banks, who is here, and our Emergency Manager, Division Chief Avery with Orange County Fire Rescue. With that, we'll open it up for any questions at this time.
Should people in Orange County be prepared for widespread power outages? And if so, about when are you expecting that?
The question was, should people in Orange County be prepared for widespread power outages? The simple answer is yes. This is going to be a significant win challenge for us. And because of that, we know that we're going to have down power lines, et cetera. So they should prepare for that. And whether you're within the OUC or the Duke Energy territory, we just ask that you sign up for the alerts, as we just talked about, if you want to alert to your phone if power goes down, your cell phone, et cetera. So thank you. All right, other questions? Okay. All right, Martha Lee Irizarry is going to come up. Martha Lee, you got it? You got the question?
What was the question again?
La pregunta es sobre si los residentes del condado Orange deben esperar grandes cantidades de apagones eléctricos.
Okay, are Orange County residents expecting a lot of power outages?
And
Roger. There's help if you call them numbers. I mean, I'm in Tennessee, and I posted the number for South Carolina's Red Cross, and that was the FEMA number that I posted too. Just keep them all in your prayers. It's affecting people on the internet. People's losing their roofs, their houses. There's stuff that they've worked for. And it could happen to any of us. But I noticed today, which it's okay to help, but don't give it to the wrong people. Give it to the people that's actually going to take and give it to the right people that needs it. Don't give it to people that didn't help their hometown whenever they was in the need. That's just my opinion. You can do whatever you want to. Don't let them people like Ernie, and I'll call it out by name, I don't care. Because he would be the type to do this. He would catch people vulnerable and use this vulnerable time, and everybody else, a few others, to grab up what they can and don't do what they say. Especially if you're you're from a hometown, and I wish I could too. I'd take it away in a heartbeat. I would take their pain away and carry it on my shoulders. But I can't. Which of course they've got help down there, but they're going to need a whole lot more. This storm is moving slow, and it is huge, as you can tell. You heard the one say he ain't even in the worst of it yet. But you got people already putting up, which not everybody's like this. They are true, legitimate people that will help. and does help. But you got the clowns, the unlegitimate ones, that won't help. It didn't even help do nothing whenever their hometown was in a bind. So what I'm saying, don't let people turn this vulnerable time whenever they should be praying for these people. And if they want to help, send their money to the right people and everybody else do it to the right people. I went through and looked, and I've got every Red Cross that I could find in Florida on my community post. I've got FEMA's number and few other numbers, I think, of FEMA. Send it to the right people. Unless you're just going to go down there like do hands on. There's hundreds of bucket trucks. There's hundreds of people, thousands of people from neighboring states are going. If you want to do that, there's nothing wrong with that either. But don't let people catch, like I said, predators come in many forms. Don't let the predators take and use this vulnerable time to put the money in their wallets whenever they could take and send them, give you the information and have you do it. I know some creators down there, YouTube creators, that's actually going through it right now. They've lost the roof. Some people, their kids, I mean, like the person said from Indiana, they had no clue. But let people do, there's right ways of doing things. And don't let these people turn it into a cash cow. That's all I got to say about that. And say prayers for everybody involved. I mean, it could be us. Look at Kentucky. Got flooded. You never know. Tornadoes, hurricanes, or anything. So I've been on here over an hour now. I'm gonna get off here and find me something to eat. Anybody that wants to help people in Florida, you can Google it yourself, or you can go on my community post and look at the numbers, and I'm sure one of them numbers will get you exactly, Joey R. When what I'm talking about on some of this is there's people got their Cash App up, or they're going to take up donations that ain't even done what you did to their own hometown. In my opinion, and it sounds to me like there's a lot of people in that hometown that cares, and in Florida. So, Roger, I would get on that right away. I would hop on that right away. I don't know what part it'll hit or if it even does. I mean, that don't mean that it's going to, but call the numbers. It won't hurt. I mean, if I'm in a bad situation and others is in a bad situation, that's our duty to try to and I'm there in that situation, and you know others is right there beside of you in a situation, there's numbers that you can call to get help. So as you're going through stuff, don't let other people go through stuff. That's your neighbors. Like living could do, whether it be the whole living complex or whatever the case may be, bad housing, bad this. I mean, there's numbers. They don't make a health department for nothing. They don't make, of course, departments like housing for nothing. They don't make FEMA for nothing. They don't make Red Cross for nothing. All in places is made to help people. And if it comes down to it and I see my neighbor needing help and I need to call the health department or I need to call anybody that can actually help, I will. I'll do it. And that's the way, especially with a slumlord that don't mind taking your money up. Do you own your house, Roger? What do you mean by close? Or do you got neighbors in the same housing, or how does that work? Oh, your mobile home? They are sources. I'd call, there's sources I'd call. So just pray for one another and pray for Florida.
Oh, I don't know why I haven't learned yet, but okay.
So you guys have a good rest of the evening. Like I said, keep them in your prayers, and there's numbers. I mean, if you know anybody that don't got help down there, and if you want to help from on here, send it to the right place, to the actual people that will help. You guys have a good night, good evening. I may go live later again or something. I don't know. So you're a woman? So you're a woman? Hmm. How old is your son? Don't mind me asking. Ancients tried to uh, and both of you is on disability. $25. You don't drive. Well, I pray it gets better, but for you guys, but there's resources that I would call them numbers, and I'd talk to Red Cross, and I'm sure they've got to be. If your house has fallen apart or um, they are resources for that. You just got to hit the right one, I guess. Well, you guys have a good evening. I'll say a prayer for you guys, Roger or Sandy. Well, try calling them numbers, and I'll post up some more numbers and stuff and see. They've got to be something. I mean, Sandy Joey wants to know if your husband is still there. And I'm all over his YouTube streets, so as well. I'm not hard to find. I watch everything. I know a lot of stuff. So where's your husband at? Why is it your trailer? I'm not understanding. So you moved back to a house that was vacant? Where did you move back from? This ain't making no, not to be mean, but what's really going on? I mean, where was you living before you went back? That's a good question. Why go back there? And if he's that bad, not saying he ain't, I don't know. I'm just talking in my opinion. Everything I say is my opinion in my mind. So please don't take this the wrong way. But this, like I said, was in my opinion in my mind. He found where you was at, and you went back to your husband's house that's in both of you's name. He's a drunk and on drugs. Why would you move back to a house that's falling apart in your husband's house with both of your names, and he's a drunk and he's on drugs? Why not find you and your son a place before you went back there? I'm just asking. I'm just trying to figure this out. Please don't. It's just my opinion. My opinion questions. Because I don't know. I don't know him. I don't know you. And he found where you was at. You and your son. Was he uh um he know where you're at now? With it being his house? And since he found you guys, didn't have long to get out. Was he living with somebody? Or you just moved because he found where you was at? Well, why didn't you get a restraining order or order of protection and make him stay away? I'm just curious, so. Why did they kick him out? No, no fear I ain't. I've been which she's been on because I guess she liked one of my comments. Um, um, why did they make you move? Yeah, but you could have. Okay. I'm just wondering. But why, if he showed up where you was at and he's like that, why didn't you get an order of protection? All right, guys, I've been on here for over an hour and a half. Sandy, I'll be saying a prayer for. I'm gonna find some more numbers and stuff again, like I give you a while ago, and I'll say prayers for you. Oh, nothing. Moose fixing to get off from here and find me and eat. Yeah, say a prayer, like I said, for everybody. And I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back. I'm not going to get off here for a minute. Hang on. I'll be back. I'm back. Hello. You're welcome. Hello, guys. Yeah, I think I'd find me a small place or something. So, yeah, that's good advice, Joey. I wouldn't wait. I mean, I'm probably going to eat some beans or something. I don't eat a whole lot. No more. I used to. I used to. Hey, Hope. Ain't the housing in Anderson, ain't that tater tot casserole? Ain't that over by on a river on River Street or something? Okay, email me. What's wrong with the bedroom that you live in? The bedrooms, Sandy. Yeah, Roger. Yes, Sandy. See, Anderson, they got the housing authority up there too, which is over off River Street. And matter of fact, I think it's like an East River Street or something. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know a lot of places where I've been. Um, is that the name of the housing you applied for, Sandy?
We get some Sprite, some ice, and then toilet paper.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's what I was asking them for, Joey. Even the, I don't know about helping with, yeah, it's on, I know where it's at. It's on East River. I don't know the number, but I know it's on the East River Street, on a River Street. So they ain't no Section 8 or nothing either, Sandy? I'm gonna Google that. Section 8 for Anderson County. Anderson. Um, hang on just a second. I've screwed it up. Section 8 housing, Anderson, South Carolina. Yeah, I know, Hope. I just was asking. I know that's what I was made the comment for. I've been all over these YouTube streets. I know, no disrespect to nobody, but I know what goes on. A lot of times. A lot of times I don't, but a lot of times I do. I'm Fairview Apartments, Anderson, South Carolina. Have you tried that place, Sandy? I've been a lot of places. I know a lot of places. There's a Fairview Gardens apartment. That's what I just Googled the number. Have you? It's off of. Well, we're just trying to get you help. I mean, have you called all the numbers that they give you? I'm just curious because I've been, like I said, I go into everybody's chats. I wasn't trying to be just come out and say, just come out and be mean. I'm not being mean. I just didn't want to come out and sound mean, until somebody had brought it out. Now, where's your husband at? But since it's already out there, I'm just going to call it. I mean, I go in everybody's chats, and if you hadn't read, I mean, what I've been saying, I didn't want to, like I said, I don't want to come across mean. But if you could take and think about the comments I've been making, I already know this stuff. Like whenever I asked, what are you talking about? Fairview Apartments ain't got no age restriction. That's over off of Williamston Road. Hang on. I'll get you the number. Fairview Apartments, Winston Road, Anderson, South Carolina. It's them ain't based on your 55 or not. I'm just trying to give you some more information. I don't know what's going on, but oh, well, here, I'll put the number up here for these apartments. So I know there's all kinds of apartments up there, and it's right there into Anderson. That's why I was asking questions. Why would you go back to a house that your husband owns, but though you said he found where you was at, but you went back to the house? I can't figure that out. If he's on drugs, why would you go? Why would they kick you out to begin with? That's why I was asking them questions, because I done knowed, but I'm not trying to be. like I said, it's no disrespect. I mean, whatsoever. I just know a lot of stuff. I can't help it. I don't know how I do it, but I kill it. Write this number down and try them. That's off of, hang on a minute. I keep losing it. Fairview Gardens apartment, Anderson, South Carolina. It's their address is, I mean, that's the number. It's called Fairview Garden Apartments. Anderson, South Carolina apartments. Write that number down. Here's you another one. I wrote two numbers down there in chat. All these is right there in Anderson. Have you even tried any of these places? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hang on a minute. I gotta make sure some of these is in Anderson. I know them two right there is for a fact. Oh yeah. I know the two I posted there. Here's one, Fairview Gardens. There's the number for that one. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Right there's 20 apartments. See, you can Google it. Hang on. Damn it. I hit the wrong button again. I just sat there and counted 20, and here is 12 more. Well, okay. Anderson Housing Authority, which is over off River Street. There's Friendship Court. There's 12 more right there's 3. 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms. So all you got to do is put in Anderson, South Carolina, low income housing. And there's like, I know I just counted 20, and then I dug up 12 more. All right, Hope, be careful. So you just have to Google. I'm going to go back to watching the news. Check out, see what's going on with hurricane.
We live in a city now where there's a lot of uncertainty and unfortunately a lot of crime and violence. And it's quite frightening. Well, I am so grateful to have been
Prayers,
Berna. Absolutely
hope
love
for
Berna. I love it
everybody.
more than I had actually anticipated. But with Berna, you have the best of all worlds. You have a device that can protect yourself and give yourself a couple of minutes to find safety, to get help, all without the risk of actually taking someone's life.
To clear the streets. There are people who are trapped, both here in Collier County and north of me in Fort Myers in Lee County. So one of the problems that they've got, I think these people are just trying to be helpful. They're trying to move cars out of the way so that police and authorities and the people who fix the electrical wires can ultimately get through. But basically, it's still too windy. The storm surge has pulled out, but there are still parts of Naples that are flooded. Downtown is still flooded. So nothing's going to happen tonight. They are going to try to wait for most of this to recede, and most of it will in this part of Florida, then start their recovery efforts tomorrow morning. Mostly a power issue. But north of us, as you know, Tom, it's a mess. That storm is still very active, and it's slowed to a crawl. It's now a Category 3, by the way. It's just become a Category 3, 125 mile per hour winds, but it's moving more slowly, which means it's dumping more rain. This is ultimately going to be a rain and water event more than a wind event, and that's going to be devastating even to inland Florida as it gets to Orlando and points north.
Allie, you've covered so many hurricanes. We've covered some together. How does this one compare? When it was passing over you, when you guys felt that eye wall at first, how would you compare this to other hurricanes you've covered?
So, Tom, you know, sometimes when you're in a hurricane, you just hear that wind and it's like a freight train and you feel it inside your soul. That wasn't this. At no point where we were, north of us at 155 miles an hour, you're going to feel more of that. Down here, it was all the water. This is a water event. I've never in my life visualized a storm surge the way I got to see it here from noon to about 3 or 4 p.m. just to watch it all come in and push everything in with it, and to watch these vehicles start to float and bump into each other and be moved. So this was, you know, again, in American hurricanes, more often than not, the dangerous part is the water over the wind, but we think of hurricanes as windstorms. This after so many hurricanes, this one really made me understand that the storm surge, the water is the deadly part. It's also the part that you don't feel inside your bones, so you're not as fearful of. And that's what they're worried about tonight, that people will start going out to see the damage in their areas. There's live wires and there's still water that can float your car and drown you. So they really are asking people, shelter in place, stay where you are, let the authorities handle this tomorrow.
Yeah, Allie, one of the first lessons I learned reporting on hurricanes, the wind will hurt you, the water will kill you. Before we let you go, and we have Bill Karen standing by with that breaking news you mentioned that the hurricane is now a Category 3. I do want to ask you, Allie, you know, Naples is one of those areas that had a population explosion even before the pandemic started. Did people heed the warning? Did they evacuate? Because I see you're surrounded by beachfront condos there.
It's unclear. They call it a mandatory evacuation, but as you know, Tom, that just means that if you stay and get into trouble, we can't help you. We can't come out to save you. We do know in Lee County, north of us, and in those barrier islands, some people did stay, and authorities are having a very difficult time trying to figure out who they are, because they've said if you have internet service or phone service, please let us know that you're here or you're not here, even if you don't need a rescue. but nobody's got that. The internet service is out in a lot of places, power's down in a lot of places, so we don't have a sense of how many people stayed. I do know I saw people covering their cars so the cars didn't get damaged. I don't think they count on the fact that the cars could pick up and float away. So I think there's probably a lot of people who stayed to try and ride this out. If you're above the second story or above, you were probably got a good chance of being okay. If you weren't, that's a problem.
Yeah, Ali Velshi reporting all day for us here and throughout all the platforms of NBC News. Ali, great reporting. You and your team stay safe. I do want to get to Bill Cairns now. He's been standing by for us. Bill, we know that Hurricane Ian is now a Category 3. No such thing as a weak hurricane, and a Category 3 is still a monster storm.
Still a major hurricane. Here we are now 4 hours after landfall, and we want to get the winds as weak as possible. We want the least amount of wind damage up through the Orlando area as we possibly can get. We haven't been adding up the water. So there's three things that, or at least potentially life-threatening. Obviously, the storm surge, that's beginning to recede. Now, that's the west coast of Florida. We still got to deal with the storm surge on the northeast Florida coastline and in Georgia, South Carolina, and possibly even North Carolina. I'll talk more about that in a second. But that storm surge threat, life-threatening, the water is beginning to recede. So that's good. The second thing is rainfall. Look at Punta Gorda, 17 inches of rain. Remember we said someone could get upwards of possibly 2 feet of rain? Well, now the Hurricane Center is saying maximum of 30 inches of rain is possible somewhere. So there's a lot of water everywhere, not just from the storm surge, but even from the fresh water. And some other rainfall totals, a little lower than that. Sanibel was almost about 7. Sarasota was about 5 to 6 inches. Still hefty rainfall totals, but not the 1 to 2 feet. So where are we going to...
Look how big that thing is. This is up above it.
Let's take it slow. Slow. Mom? Wow. And they'll check them both for free.
Yes. Fix Finder, the most complete free warning light report backed by technician verified fixes. Sales teams have it tough. PandaDoc is here to make things easy. Create, share, and approve documents in minutes. Get real-time reporting, easy integrations too. Automate proposals and speed up your deals with PandaDoc.
You can probably see it hitting my face right now. All right, Ashley Soriano live for us in Tampa. Thank you very much. We'll check back with you later tonight. Now we want to get a check on the very latest with Hurricane Ian. You see it right there. The eye has moved inland after making landfall over in the Gulf about 4 Power outages is the big story tonight, of course. It's one of the many big stories, and it's interesting to point out that in Ashley's live shot, we still saw some lights on in the background, even though more than 1.1 million people are without power right now.
Most of the people without power are south of where that hurricane made landfall. They're north, so that's the good news, is that they're on kind of the cleaner side of the storm. The winds were really bad south of where Ashley is, just a little bit around Fort Myers, where that eye wall came ashore. Let's check in with the Fox 35 storm team with the latest on Hurricane Ian. Gentlemen.
Yes. Good evening. Good evening. Yes. Still watching rain going sideways. All of our live reporters doing a great job. Brooks, everyone staying safe. That is also a primary concern of us here.
Number one.
Our people that are bringing you the action and the story as it unfolds here locally in Central Florida. Now we're talking about the winds. We're talking about the rains, the impacts as we suspected, Frank. Spreading out far and wide from that center of circulation.
Yeah, if you look at a similar path like Charlie back in 2004, much different storm, very compact. This one has a huge wind field extending out well over 100.
You guys have a good evening. I'm gonna get off here for a while, and you guys keep everybody in Florida in your prayers. Thank you, guys. I'll keep every one of you guys in your prayer in my prayers. Thank you.